darkness. An endless void beyond comprehension. Silence stretched on like a frozen wave, broken only by a faint flicker of static, crackling through an emergency broadcast. A voice emerged, alien, fractured, desperate. "This message is for any species capable of resistance," it began, voice trembling yet resolute. "The pale swarm is here. They consume stars. They do not speak. They do not stop. We are dying." The words hung heavy in the void, a warning etched in cosmic frost. Cut to Earth, a planet battered but unbroken. The seat of the Sol Defense Council gathered in urgent convocation, faces grim and voices low. Humanity had arrived late on the galactic stage. The universe's upstart child, reckless and wild, often dismissed as short-lived and overly emotional. Yet no species had endured as many extinction events. No one had adapted so violently or with such ferocity. And now the galaxy would call upon the species foolish enough, mad enough, to stand and fight. Commander Ethan Cole stood before a holographic star map, etched in shifting blue and green light. His face was a road map of scars and battle-worn determination. Born on Mars, raised among the dust storms and forgotten colonies, he embodied the grit of a death-welder, unyielding, relentless. The map flickered, displaying the devastation, entire star clusters erased, swallowed by the insatiable pale swarm. The only hope, Relay Station Epsilon 9, a relic from a forgotten war, dormant on the fringe of the swarm's advance. If reactivated, its ancient containment protocols, hidden deep within its AI, could slow or even halt the creeping death. The Galactic Coalition had dispatched volunteers to the suicide mission, but the leader had to be human. Only a death welder would dare something so insane. The crew assembled under harsh fluorescent lights, a motley but resolute band. Sictel, the crystalline strategist, whose form shimmered like fractured ice, processing probabilities in an unyielding flow. Tarn, the reptilian pilot, war-scarred and cold, haunted by planets lost to conquest and decay. Ensign Rayne, a human linguist harboring secrets deeper than the void, half human, half revenant, shaped by experiments none dared speak aloud. Unit 943, the AI who chose to join the mission, seeking an elusive purpose beyond its programming. Commander Cole climbed aboard the dropship last, muscles tense, eyes sharp. "Let's go earn the galaxy's respect," he murmured, the weight of countless lives resting on those words. The derelict station greeted them with silence and shadows. Epsilon 9 was a tomb, its corridors coated in dust and menace, haunted by the ghostly hum of failing systems. Swarm drones skittered like insects in the dark, their buzzing reverberating through the vacuum-sealed halls. Cole led, breaching sealed doors with grim determination. Every step echoed the fragile heartbeat of a dying hope. Sictel faltered, a shard of alien metal piercing its crystalline frame. Tarn's roar echoed as he dragged his companion to safety. Ensign Rayne's voice cut through the tension, discovery and disbelief entwined. "This code, it's human, written long before we could have touched this tech." Cole's eyes narrowed. "We've been here before." Deeper still in the cold core, the crew found not just a trigger but a prison. The swarm, once guardians, created by the first civilization to tame entropy, had been corrupted. Through Unit 943, a voice whispered, ancient and mournful. "They remember pain, yours, mine, ours, and they mimic what they fear." Rayne stepped forward, the half-human hybrid bridging worlds, her presence a balm to the maddening hive. The crew could have fled, but instead they stood. Sictel collapsed the hangar bay, a thunderous barrier of ice and crystal. Tarn rammed the shuttle into the incoming swarm reinforcements, roaring defiance. Rayne connected her mind to the hive signal, not with fear but with memory. Earth's wars, its music, its grief and love. She showed them humanity's choice, hope, even on the edge of oblivion. Cole keyed in the final sequence, knowing this was his last act. "If someone must fall so others can rise, let it be me." Silence returned. Then light bloomed across the Epsilon grid. The swarm retreated. The station stilled. A coalition rescue ship found only Rayne alive, suspended in cryo, clutching a shard of Cole's Martian insignia. The war was far from over, but humanity had done what no other dared. They did not run, they stood, and that changed everything. The galaxy remembered them, not as invaders or reckless upstarts, but as echoes of valor still heard across the stars. And when the next great darkness rises, the question will be asked again. Where are the humans? The rescue ship's airlock hissed open with a shudder. and Ensign Rayne was pulled from cryostasis like a fragile relic from a forgotten past. Her limbs were stiff, her breath shallow, but her mind was sharp, haunted by the echoes of what had transpired on Epsilon 9. The sterile white corridors of the Coalition cruiser felt alien, a stark contrast to the haunted silence of the derelict station. But there was no time for rest. Commander Ethan Cole was gone, and the Pale Swarm still consumed entire star systems, their shadows stretching relentlessly across the galaxy. Rayne's voice was hoarse as she reported to the Coalition command bridge. "Relay Station Epsilon 9 is secure. The swarm has retreated, but it was not destroyed. The containment protocols have bought us time we may not have." Admiral Harrow leaned over the console, his face lined with years of war and worry. "Time, that is the currency we have too little of. What of Commander Cole?" Rayne swallowed hard. He activated the final sequence, sacrificed himself to trigger the containment. "I found this." She held up the cracked insignia shard, worn but unmistakably Martian. Harrow's eyes hardened. He did what no one else would. A Deathworlder's courage indeed. Back on Earth, the news of the mission's partial success spread quickly. Humanity's reputation in the Galactic Coalition shifted overnight, from reckless upstarts to stalwart defenders. Political leaders scrambled to bolster defenses, scientists pored over data recovered from Epsilon 9, and the public clung to a new hope born from sacrifice. But the Pale Swarm was no ordinary enemy. It was ancient, alien, and terrifying in its simplicity. The swarm didn't attack for conquest or resources. It devoured energy, life, and light itself, an endless hunger driven by a mysterious biological imperative. Rayne spent hours alone in the ship's lab, decoding the fragments of data Cole and the crew had gathered. The patterns in the swarm's behavior suggested something terrifying, a collective intelligence, but also a memory. The swarm could learn, adapt, and even feel. Her fingers trembled as she translated the cryptic logs. They remember pain. They mimic what they fear. The swarm was not mindless. It was a reflection, a mirror to the galaxy's darkest nightmares. The Coalition convened a war council. Representatives from dozens of star systems gathered in a vast chamber orbiting Earth. The urgency was palpable. The swarm's shadow loomed larger with every passing day. General Klein, a grizzled veteran of countless conflicts, slammed his fist on the table. "We need more than containment protocols. We need weapons, strategies, something to strike back with." From the back of the room, a voice rose. It was Dr. Amara Ling, a leading xenobiologist and AI specialist. "Containment alone is a stopgap. The swarm's neural network is unlike anything we've faced, but it might be vulnerable to disruption from within." She projected a swirling 3D model of the swarm's hive mind. "If we can interface directly with their neural pathways, hack their collective consciousness, we might be able to turn their mimicry against them." The room fell silent. It was a dangerous gamble, but one worth taking. Meanwhile, Rayne's hybrid physiology and unique connection to the swarm's mimic signals made her the perfect candidate for a new mission. She was to be the Coalition's first hive breaker. A bridge between humanity and the alien collective. Training was brutal. She endured neural interface calibrations, simulations that pushed her mind to the brink, and endless psychological conditioning to resist the swarm's maddening whispers. Through it all, memories of Ethan Cole's sacrifice fueled her resolve. Weeks later, aboard the stealth vessel Ardent Dawn, Rayne prepared for descent into the heart of the Pale Swarm's territory. The ship was equipped with the latest neural hacking technology and a small strike team of specialists. Her team included Dr. Amara Ling, the architect of the neural interface, Captain Jace Merrick, a tactical genius with a reputation for calm under pressure, Sictel, the crystalline strategist, recovered and repaired from the Epsilon mission, Tarn, hardened but loyal, ready to pilot the Ardent Dawn through the deadliest skies. The descent into the Pale Swarm's territory was unlike any other. The stars dimmed, swallowed by a growing cloud of blackened energy and swirling tendrils of the swarm itself. The ship's sensors flickered in and out of functionality, assaulted by the alien entity's pervasive presence. Rayne connected the neural interface, her mind reaching out into the hive network. At first there was only chaos, a cacophony of millions of minds, a seething ocean of pain and fear. Then something familiar, memories. Fragments of past lives, lost civilizations, and horrifying betrayals echoed in her consciousness. She saw the swarm's origins, the first civilization's failed attempt to harness entropy itself, twisted by hubris into a ravenous plague. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, but she held steady. The swarm's collective mind pulsed in response to her presence. It probed her thoughts, searching for weakness. Rayne felt the cold terror of isolation, the creeping madness of endless darkness. But she countered with something alien to the swarm: hope. She projected images of Earth's wars, not just the carnage, but the courage, the music, the laughter and love that persisted despite it all. The hive recoiled. Back in the physical world, the Ardent Dawn's crew faced constant attacks from swarm drones, the corridors shaking with explosive impacts. Captain Merrick coordinated defenses with surgical precision, while Sictel calculated every possible maneuver. Tarn's piloting skills saved them repeatedly, weaving through the swarm's tendrils with relentless determination. But time was running out. Rayne's mind was the battleground now. The interface strained under the swarm's psychic backlash. Every moment was a battle between light and shadow, sanity and oblivion. Then a voice, clear and commanding, cut through the chaos. "Rayne, you must sever the core link. It's the heart of their consciousness." It was Dr. Ling speaking through the comm link, urgency bleeding into her tone. Rayne focused, following the neural pathways deeper into the hive. The core link was a swirling nexus of energy, pulsating with every thought of the collective. If destroyed, it could shatter the swarm's unity, but at great risk. With a final surge of will, Rayne unleashed the neural virus designed by Dr. Ling. The hive screamed, a soundless, psychic shriek that echoed through her mind and beyond. The Ardent Dawn shook violently as the swarm's network began to collapse. Drones faltered and fell from the sky. Light returned to the darkened stars. The Ardent Dawn escaped the collapsing hive, limping back toward Coalition space. Rayne's eyes fluttered open as the interface disengaged. She was exhausted, but alive. The cost had been high. Back on Earth, the war was far from over. But humanity had taken its first real stand, and when the galaxy asked once more, "Where are the humans?" the answer was clear. They were fighting. The silence of space was a thin veil stretched over a galaxy teetering on the edge of annihilation. The Ardent Dawn drifted slowly through the outer rim, battered but unbroken, its hull scarred by the desperate battle with the Pale Swarm. Every system they passed was a silent tomb. Stars that once burned brightly were now smothered in darkness. Ensign Rayne sat in the medbay, her body healing, but her mind racing with the weight of what she had experienced. Memories and nightmares melded, a swirling tempest of alien voices, distant screams, and the echo of Ethan Cole's final sacrifice. She rubbed her temples, trying to anchor herself in reality. The neural interface had unlocked a door in her mind, one that the swarm's hive had left ajar. She could still hear the whispered fragments of the collective's pain and fear, lingering like ghosts beneath her thoughts. On Earth, the Sol Defense Council met again, this time with more urgency. News of the Ardent Dawn's near-miraculous survival spread like wildfire, but the true scale of the threat remained grim. The Pale Swarm was not just an enemy to be fought. It was a force of nature, an unstoppable tide that devoured everything in its path. General Klein paced before the council, his voice rough but steady. Containment was a victory, yes, but the swarm is adapting faster than we can track. Every day more star systems fall silent. Our defenses are stretched thin. Dr. Amara Ling stood beside him, her eyes sharper than ever. The neural virus Rayne deployed damaged the swarm's core, but it was only a blow, not a kill. The hive's remnants are fragmented but far from defeated. Worse, they're evolving. The council chamber fell into a heavy silence. In a hidden lab beneath the ruins of old Mars colonies, Rayne prepared for a next mission. She was to serve as humanity's spearhead once more, but this time the stakes were higher. The swarm's adaptations meant new dangers. Psychic assaults that could fry a mind, biological weapons born of alien corruption, and worst of all, the possibility of the swarm learning to infiltrate the coalition itself. Rayne's half-human, half-revenant biology was unique, but even she was not invulnerable. She ran through the neural interface diagnostics one more time, then tested the new weapon, a neural disruptor designed to sever swarm mind links in real time. Her hands trembled as she activated the device, feeling the cold pulse ripple through her nervous system. The mission was clear. Infiltrate the swarm's growing shadow in the nearby system known as Vela Prime and plant the disruptor deep within their hive network. It was a suicide run. If they failed, the swarm's tendrils would spread unchecked, devouring entire sectors. Her team was small but skilled. Captain Jace Merrick, tactical leader and unwavering guardian. Sictel, the crystalline strategist, whose mind was as sharp as ever. Tarn, the reptilian pilot and warrior, loyal beyond measure. Dr. Ling, who would remotely oversee the neural tech and provide real-time data. The Ardent Dawn entered the Vela Prime system, a swirling mass of dark energy and corrupted asteroids. Sensors barely pierced the thick veil of swarm biomatter clinging to the planets and moons. Tarn piloted the ship with deadly precision, weaving through asteroid fields that seemed alive with predatory intent. The ship's shields flickered under constant assault from swarm drones. Rayne's mind was wired directly into the neural interface, her consciousness tethered to the hive's periphery. She could feel the swarm's presence as a low, pulsing heartbeat beneath her thoughts, a living nightmare of collective pain and hunger. The landing zone was on a shattered moon, scarred by swarm activity. The team disembarked into the toxic atmosphere, their suits filtering the poisonous gases and shielding them from the hive's psychic influence. Sictel's crystalline form shimmered with nervous energy as it scanned the surroundings. The hive's neural core is deeper than we predicted. We'll need to navigate through the nest tunnels, ancient biostructures that extend kilometers below the surface. Rayne nodded, steeling herself. We don't have much time. As they ventured deeper, the air grew heavier with the hive's psychic presence. The walls pulsed with organic growths, thick tendrils that seemed to watch them, sensing their every move. Suddenly, an eerie silence fell. The team froze. A swarm of biodrones erupted from the shadows, their chitinous shells gleaming under the dim bioluminescence. Tarn raised his plasma rifle, firing precise bursts that shattered the attackers, but the drones kept coming. Waves of relentless enemies with no fear, no hesitation. Sictel deployed crystalline barriers, freezing the tunnel passages, buying precious seconds. Rayne connected to the neural interface again, reaching out with her mind to disrupt the hive's signaling. The swarm reacted violently, sending psychic tendrils that lashed at her consciousness like whips of pure agony. She gritted her teeth, pushing through the pain. Memories of Earth's music, its laughter, and the sacrifices of countless warriors fueled her resistance, but the swarm was relentless. Deeper still, the team encountered the hive's core, a massive pulsating bioorganic structure, alive with the collective consciousness of billions of individual drones. Rayne's neural disruptor pulsed to life. She connected it directly to the core, sending a wave of synthetic neural interference through the hive mind. The hive screamed in silent agony, waves of psychic pain crashing through the tunnels. The drones faltered, confusion rippling through the swarm. But the hive was not defeated yet. From the shadows emerged a monstrous entity, the swarm's hive sentinel, a gargantuan creature forged of living metal and corrupted flesh, a brutal amalgamation of predator and machine. Its many eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence as it charged toward the team. Captain Merrick fired the ship's emergency railgun, blasting holes in the creature's armor, but it pressed on relentlessly. The battle was fierce. Tarn dodged the sentinel's crushing blows, carving openings for Sictel to strike with crystalline shards. Rayne focused her neural interface, weaving psychic counterattacks that disrupted the sentinel's control over the drones. The sentinel howled in frustration, its bulk smashing through tunnels, threatening to collapse the entire nest. In a desperate move, Rayne connected the neural disruptor directly to the sentinel's core, risking a total psychic backlash. Pain exploded in her mind, visions of destruction and loss flashing before her eyes. She gritted her teeth and unleashed a final pulse, shattering the sentinel's control, sending it crashing into the hive core. The hive began to collapse. Tunnels caved in, biomatter writhing and dying. The Ardent Dawn's extraction team raced back to the surface as the moon shook violently. Tarn's piloting saved them once again, launching the ship away just as the hive exploded in a wave of bioenergetic destruction. Back aboard the Ardent Dawn, the crew breathed a collective sigh of relief, but the victory was bittersweet. Dr. Ling's voice came through the comms, grim. The hive is damaged, yes, but the swarm will rebuild. Faster, stronger. Rayne looked out the viewport at the darkened stars. The galaxy was a battleground, and humanity was the reluctant guardian. As the Ardent Dawn set course back to Earth, Rayne allowed herself a moment to remember the sacrifice of Ethan Cole and those who fell before. They had stood when no one else would, and she would carry their courage forward, no matter the darkness to come. The galaxy was changing, and so were the humans. The journey back to Earth was long and quiet. The Ardent Dawn sliced through the black sea of stars, its hull battered but steadfast. Outside the viewport, the cosmos stretched endlessly, vast and indifferent, but inside the ship, a fragile bubble of hope endured. Ensign Rayne sat in the command module, her eyes tracing the constellations, her thoughts heavy with the echoes of their last battle. The neural disruptor dealt a blow to the Pale Swarm's hive, but the Coalition's scientists were clear. The enemy would not stay down for long. Captain Jace Merrick approached quietly, his footsteps steady on the metal deck. "You holding up?" he asked, voice low but steady. Rayne nodded slowly. "It's a lot. The hive's mind is still in my head. Their pain, their rage. It's like a storm that never ends." Merrick glanced at the star map projected between them, showing their route home. "We've faced worse. We'll get through this." Back on Earth, the Sol Defense Council was in crisis mode. The news of the disrupted hive had given the galaxy a brief reprieve, but the Council knew it was just a pause in a far larger war. General Klein stood before a crowded chamber, his voice echoing off the walls. "The Pale Swarm adapts faster than any intelligence we've faced. If we're going to survive, we need more than weapons. We need a new strategy." Dr. Amara Ling, monitoring neural interface data streaming from the Ardent Dawn, stepped forward. "We've detected strange signals emanating from a remote sector in the Andromeda Rift, a place no Coalition ship has dared to enter. It may hold the key to the swarm's origin, and perhaps its weakness." The room buzzed with a mixture of fear and hope. Meanwhile, aboard the Ardent Dawn, the crew prepared for the next phase. The mission was no longer just defense. It was to uncover the heart of the swarm and strike at its source. Rayne's hybrid physiology made her uniquely suited to interface with the hive's remnants, but the cost was clear. Each connection to the hive chipped away at her sanity, blurring the lines between human and swarm. Sictel recalibrated the ship's systems, its crystalline body humming softly. "Our neural defenses must be reinforced. The hive's psychic backlash is growing stronger. We can expect more intense attacks on our minds." Tarn's reptilian eyes gleamed with a fierce determination. "Let them come. I'll blast every last drone out of the sky." Captain Merrick gathered the crew. "We're heading into the Andromeda Rift. It's dangerous, uncharted, but it's the only lead we have. Prepare for everything." The journey to the Andromeda Rift was fraught with peril. The rift was a swirling anomaly, a region where space and time twisted unpredictably, and where the usual rules of navigation seemed to bend. Sensors struggled to keep pace with the distortions, and the crew relied on Sictel's analytical mind and Tarn's piloting skills to guide them through. As they crossed the rift's boundary, an eerie silence settled over the ship. Communications flickered, and even the neural interface grew unstable. Rayne felt it immediately, a new presence lurking in the shadows of her mind, something ancient and vast. Exploring the rift's heart, the Ardent Dawn found a shattered planet, its surface scarred by unknown forces. Ruins of a civilization long lost dotted the landscape, half buried beneath ash and dust. Dr. Ling's voice came through the comms, tinged with awe. "This planet? It's a graveyard. The first civilization's technology is everywhere, but corrupted, twisted by the swarm's influence." Rayne's neural link pulsed as she connected to the hive fragments here. "The swarm came from this place," she whispered. "It's the cradle of their corruption." Deeper inside the ruins, the team discovered a massive structure, an ancient vault carved into the planet's core. The walls pulsed with bioorganic circuitry, alive and thrumming with dark energy. Sictel analyzed the glyphs etched into the walls. "This is a containment chamber. It held something powerful." The air grew thick with tension. Suddenly a voice echoed, not from the walls, but from inside their minds. "It's the voice of the First," Rayne said, dread creeping into her tone. "The creators of the swarm, or what's left of them." The voice was fractured and distant, but unmistakable. It spoke of a war fought eons ago, a war against entropy itself, a war that had unleashed the swarm as a last desperate measure to preserve existence. But the swarm had become a plague, a corruption spreading unchecked. The First had sealed away their creation here, hoping to contain the darkness. As the crew ventured further, the vault's defenses awoke. Shields of light and energy flared, and guardians emerged. Constructs of ancient technology and biomatter programmed to protect the prison. A fierce battle erupted. Tarn's weapons roared, Sigtel's crystalline form unleashed shards that cut through the guardians, and Rayne's neural pulses disrupted their programming. But the vault resisted fiercely. At the core of the vault, the crew found a pulsating orb, a condensed seed of the swarm's essence, dark and throbbing with raw power. Rayne's mind reached out, feeling the orb's endless hunger, its yearning to break free and consume. Captain Merrick ordered the team to prepare the disruptor. "This ends here," he said, voice steady. Rayne connected the neural interface to the orb, the ship's systems amplifying the pulse. A final psychic battle erupted. The swarm's seed fought back with all its might, a tempest of rage and ancient intelligence. Rayne's mind burned, memories clashing, pain searing through her neural pathways. But she held on. She summoned every ounce of humanity, the defiance, the hope, the love that had kept them fighting against impossible odds. With a shattering pulse, the orb fractured. The vault began to collapse, walls crumbling and energy dissipating. The Ardent Dawn raced to escape as the planet shook violently. Tarn piloted through the chaos, dodging falling debris and energy blasts. With moments to spare, the ship burst through the rift's edge and into open space. Back in the quiet of space, the crew caught their breath. Rayne slumped in her chair, the neural interface burning away the last of its hold. Sigtel surveyed the stars. "The seed is broken. The swarm's core is shattered." Dr. Ling's voice crackled. "The galaxy has a chance, thanks to you all." Captain Merrick looked at Rayne, a rare softness in his eyes. "You carried the burden for us all. We owe you everything." But the victory came with a cost. Rayne's mind was frayed, the line between human and swarm blurred. In the silence of the ship, she heard a faint whisper, an echo of the hive, a promise that the darkness was never truly gone. The galaxy held its breath. The war was not over, but for the first time in a long time, there was hope. The Ardent Dawn drifted in the quiet stretch between star systems, its hull scarred from the battles fought within the Andromeda Rift. The crew was silent, each member wrestling with the weight of their near victory and the toll it had taken. Ensign Rayne sat in the medical bay, eyes closed, her hands resting on the neural interface helmet. The device hummed softly, stabilizing the fractured signals still ringing in her mind. The victory over the swarm's seed was hard won, but the cost was far greater than anyone had expected. Her dreams had turned into a nightmare. Endless corridors of shifting shadows, voices whispering in a language she almost understood, flashes of memories that were not her own. The line between herself and the hive was blurring, and it terrified her. Captain Jace Merrick entered quietly, his face worn with exhaustion but resolute. "How are you holding up?" he asked, voice low. Rayne opened her eyes slowly, shadows flickering in their depths. "I'm not sure anymore. Sometimes I feel like I'm still connected, like the hive never really left." Merrick nodded grimly. "That connection makes you a valuable weapon, but it also makes you vulnerable. We need to find a way to sever it without breaking you." Meanwhile, in the ship's common area, Sigtel and Tarn were in deep discussion. "We can isolate the neural link, but Rayne's unique physiology means it's intertwined with her very brain structure," Sigtel explained, crystalline fingers tapping the data pads. "If we sever it abruptly, we risk irreversible damage." Tarn grunted. "Then we find a way to control it. Use it against the swarm. They won't expect us to turn their own weapon back on them." The reptilian pilot's pragmatism was tempered by his scars, a reminder of past battles where hope had been all but lost. Back on Earth, the Sol Defense Council convened again. The news from the Ardent Dawn brought both relief and urgency. Dr. Amara Ling addressed the council, her voice steady despite the tension. The disruption in the swarm's core has slowed their advance significantly, but intelligence reports confirm multiple hives are still active in other sectors. This is a galaxy-wide contagion. General Klein slammed a fist on the table. Then we push forward, find their nests and destroy them. We have the technology, and now the knowledge of their weaknesses. A holographic map flickered to life, showing star systems marked in red, pulsating ominously. On board the Ardent Dawn, the crew prepared for the next mission. To track and eliminate secondary hives before they could regroup. Rayne's condition worsened. The hive's voice was no longer distant. It seeped into her consciousness, sometimes coaxing, sometimes threatening. In a quiet moment, she confided in Merrick, "It's like living with a ghost. I hear their thoughts, their fears, but sometimes I wonder if I'm losing myself." Merrick's reply was firm. "You're stronger than that. We all are." The ship's AI, Unit 943, monitored Rayne's neural patterns continuously. "Anomaly detected," it announced one evening. "The hive's influence is intensifying in Ensign Rayne's cognitive functions." Sictel worked alongside the AI, running simulations and tests. "We need a way to reinforce her mental boundaries, create a firewall within her mind." They developed a plan, a neural feedback loop designed to compartmentalize the hive's presence, keeping it at bay without severing the vital connection. The next stage was risky. Rayne volunteered without hesitation. In the neural chamber, with the interface helmet secured, she reached out into the hive's psychic storm once more. Her mind became a battleground, a kaleidoscope of shifting images, half-formed memories, and the chilling presence of the swarm's collective consciousness. She confronted the hive's voice directly, a fragmented echo that whispered both warning and invitation. "I am not your prisoner," she declared, voice strong despite the chaos. The voice replied with a sorrowful murmur, "We are bound by the same chains, human. Without us, the galaxy falls to entropy. With us, it burns." Rayne's thoughts raced. Could there be truth in the hive's claim? Could their destruction unleash a greater doom? Suddenly, the feedback loop stabilized. The hive's voice retreated behind a mental barrier. Rayne gasped, sweat beading on her brow. "It's holding." Sictel and Unit 943 monitored the results closely, adjusting parameters in real time. Tarn looked on, eyes sharp. "Good, because we're not done fighting yet." Outside the ship, the Ardent Dawn approached the coordinates of the nearest secondary hive. The stars around them shimmered oddly, the hive's influence warping space itself. The ship's sensors detected waves of psychic energy pulsing outward, a warning and a threat. Captain Merrick ordered, "Prepare for battle. This will be harder than before." The battle was brutal. Swarm drones emerged from the void in numbers unlike before, faster, more aggressive, coordinated. Tarn's piloting kept the ship weaving through the swarm's onslaught, while Sictel's strategic calculations directed defensive fire with lethal precision. Rayne's neural connection fed tactical insights directly to the crew, her mind linked to the hive's patterns. As the fight raged, the hive attempted to breach Rayne's mental firewall. Visions flooded her consciousness, worlds consumed by darkness, friends lost, voices screaming in despair. But Rayne held firm, channeling humanity's indomitable will. Her voice echoed through the ship's comms. "Hold the line. We are not prey." The crew pushed back, breaking through the hive's outer defenses. Captain Merrick deployed a new weapon, a sonic disruptor designed to shatter the hive's psychic links. The weapon unleashed a pulse that rippled through the swarm, disorienting and fracturing their cohesion. The swarm faltered, retreating into the void. After the battle, the crew tended to their wounds, both physical and mental. Rayne lay in the medical bay, her breathing steady but her eyes distant. Merrick sat beside her quietly. "You did more than hold the line today," he said softly. "You gave us a future." The victory was hard won, but crucial. The Ardent Dawn's journey was far from over. The galaxy was still shadowed by the Pale Swarm's hunger, but humanity and its allies had proven they could stand against the darkness. Rayne's fractured mind was a reminder of the cost, but also of the strength forged in the crucible of war. As the ship resumed its course through the stars, a new resolve settled over the crew. The fight for the galaxy's future was just beginning. The Ardent Dawn sailed through the cold silence of interstellar space, its hull bearing the scars of countless battles. Outside the viewport, distant stars blinked cold and indifferent, but inside the ship, tension simmered like a live wire. The crew was scattered across their stations, each lost in thought or duty. Captain Jace Merrick leaned against the command console, rubbing the stubble on his chin as he stared at the star charts. The next destination was a mystery, a signal intercepted from the outer rim, faint and cryptic, but with the unmistakable signature of the Pale Swarm's psychic residue. "Captain, we've got a situation," came a voice from the comms. It was Sictel, his crystalline frame shimmering faintly in the command center's light. Merrick turned sharply. "Report." "A distress signal, old and encrypted, was detected near the Viridian Nebula," Sictel explained. "It predates the current war, possibly from a lost Coalition vessel. The source coordinates coincide with a known swarm nest." Merrick exchanged a glance with Rayne, who stood nearby, her expression guarded. "Could it be survivors?" Merrick asked. Rayne shook her head slowly. "Or something worse. The swarm leaves little alive." The decision was swift. The Ardent Dawn altered course for the Viridian Nebula, its crew preparing for the unknown. The approach to the nebula was eerie, a swirling cloud of iridescent gas that distorted sensors and dampened communications. The ship's instruments flickered erratically, forcing Sictel and Unit 943 to recalibrate constantly. Within the nebula's heart lay the coordinates of the signal, a derelict ship, half swallowed by the cosmic mist. Boarding the derelict was a task filled with foreboding. The Ardent Dawn's dropship cut through the nebula's haze, landing on the ghostly hull. Inside, the corridors were choked with dust and silence. Flickering emergency lights cast long shadows, and every step echoed through the empty ship. Merrick led the team. Sictel, Tarn, Rayne, and 2 security officers. Their weapons were ready, senses heightened. The ship's logs told a fractured tale, crew members vanishing, systems failing, and a desperate attempt to quarantine an outbreak. Rayne examined the logs closely, a chill running down her spine. This wasn't just a swarm attack. Something else happened here. Suddenly, the ship's artificial intelligence flickered to life, glitching, broken. "Warning, quarantine breach, contamination detected," it rasped. A low growl echoed through the hallways, followed by a sudden surge of movement. Tarn raised his pulse rifle as a shadow lunged from the dark. The creature was unlike anything the crew had faced before, twisted, malformed, its eyes burning with unnatural intelligence. It snarled, a sound both alien and human. The battle was chaotic. The creature dodged energy blasts with unnatural speed, slashing and tearing. Sictel's crystalline form shimmered as he coordinated the team's movements, calling out strategies. Rayne's neural link hummed as she reached out with her mind, trying to connect with the creature's strange psychic signature. To her shock, a voice whispered back, a fractured echo of a human mind, twisted by the hive's corruption but still present. "We are trapped," it said. "A curse upon the galaxy. Not all are lost." Rayne's heart pounded. "You're not one of them, are you?" The creature hesitated, its form flickering. Captain Merrick barked orders, trying to keep the team alive and focused. "Contain it. We need to understand what we're dealing with." Rayne stepped forward, lowering her weapon. "Wait," she said gently. "If there's still a spark of humanity here, we have to reach it." The psychic connection deepened. Images flooded Rayne's mind. Memories of the ship's crew, their hopes, fears, and the desperate measures they took to stop the contamination. The creature was a victim of the Pale Swarm's experiments, a human mind fused with alien cells in a failed attempt to create a psychic weapon. With great effort, Rayne projected calm, hope, and determination. The creature's aggression softened. "Help us," it pleaded. Rayne looked to Merrick. "We have to save them." The crew worked feverishly to stabilize the creature's mind and body. Sictel modified the AI protocols to restore the ship's systems and contain the contamination. Tarn stood guard, wary of any sudden attacks. As the creature slowly regained coherence, it revealed crucial information. The swarm's reach was deeper and more insidious than previously thought, infecting not just machines, but living beings across the galaxy. The war was no longer just about survival, it was about preserving what it meant to be alive. Back on the Ardent Dawn, the crew faced the harsh reality. Their fight was far from over. Rayne's connection to the hive was both a blessing and a curse, a bridge between worlds, a fragile hope in the void. Captain Merrick looked out at the stars, his resolve hardening. We carry the future of humanity and the galaxy on our shoulders. The journey ahead was uncertain, but together they would face the darkness. They would stand, and they would fight. The Ardent Dawn sailed deeper into the black, the weight of the unknown pressing on every soul aboard. The ship's hum was a steady reminder of life in the void, yet within the crew, silence had grown like a shadow, unseen but heavy. Captain Jace Merrick sat alone in the command center, eyes fixed on the swirling star field beyond the viewport. The Viridian Nebula was behind them, but its ghosts lingered, whispers of loss, sacrifice, and questions that had no easy answers. The events on the derelict ship had shaken them all. The encounter with the twisted creature, a victim of the Pale Swarm's cruel experiments, exposed a chilling truth. The enemy's infection was not just physical, but mental and psychic. It reached into the very core of what it meant to be alive, and now that corruption was spreading. Down the hall, Ensign Rayne sat cross-legged in the medbay, her neural link still active, pulses of hive energy flickering across her brainwaves. The connection was fragile but growing. Every time she reached out into the hive mind, she felt a mix of dread and hope. The paradox was clear. To understand the enemy, she had to walk a razor's edge between empathy and self-preservation. Sick tell. Status report. Captain Merrick's voice broke the silence as he re-entered the command center. The crystalline strategist rotated smoothly toward him. Our data is incomplete. The corrupted psychic signature detected on the derelict matches several unknown nodes scattered throughout the swarm's territory. Merrick frowned. Unknown nodes? Are they new? Possibly, Sictel replied. They may be remote nests or something more, intentional spreaders of psychic contagion. Merrick's jaw tightened, meaning the swarm is evolving, adapting. The crew gathered in the briefing room, a stark chamber lit by the cold glow of holographic displays. Each face told a story, determined, tired, but unbroken. Merrick stood at the center, voice steady. We are fighting a war on two fronts. The physical threat of the Pale Swarm and the psychic war waged within minds, ours included. Rayne's eyes met his. I've been working on a way to shield our minds, to block the hive's influence. Tarn growled softly. Better shield than cure. Let's hope it works. As plans formed, tension rippled beneath the surface. Rayne's connection to the hive made some uneasy. She was a bridge, yes, but a bridge to an enemy that devoured souls. Rumors stirred among the crew, whispers of distrust and fear. Even Merrick caught himself wondering, could the hive manipulate her? Was she still entirely herself? That night, Merrick found Rayne alone in the observation deck, staring into the void. Mind if I join you? He asked quietly. She nodded. I'm tired of the silence. He stood beside her. What do you see out there? Not stars, she said. Potential, danger, the thin line between them. She hesitated. I can feel the hive. Not just their presence, but their fear. They fear us. Not because we're stronger, but because we fight when others would flee. Merrick smiled faintly. We stand because we must. Their moment was shattered by an alarm blaring through the ship. Incoming transmission, Sictel announced, his form pulsing rapidly. The hologram flickered to life, revealing a face twisted in urgency. Captain Merrick, this is Commander Lena Ford of the Outer Defense Corps, the figure said. We have intel on a swarm hive growing in the Lysara cluster. It's expanding fast, and it's unlike anything we've faced. Merrick's eyes narrowed. What makes it different? The swarm there has integrated with a lost First Civilization outpost. Their tech and the hive are merging. It's a hybrid threat, spreading corruption through ancient machinery and psychic links. The room fell silent. A hybrid hive meant devastation on an unprecedented scale. Merrick nodded grimly. Prepare the Ardent Dawn for immediate departure. We strike before they gain ground. As the ship warped toward Lysara, the crew braced for the battle ahead. Rayne sat in meditation, her mind reaching out once more into the hive. This time the response was stronger, a wave of psychic noise threatening to overwhelm her. But beneath the chaos, a single thought echoed clear. We remember. We resist. In the days that followed, the Ardent Dawn became a fortress of will and defiance. Sictel's calculations pinpointed the hive's core, an ancient beacon pulsing with corrupted energy. Tarn led strike teams to disable defense arrays, moving like a shadow in the alien architecture. Rayne's neural link served as their guide, navigating the psychic labyrinth with unwavering focus. The final assault was brutal. Swarm bioforms swarmed the corridors like a living tide, claws and mandibles tearing through metal and flesh. The hybrid tech pulsed with deadly power, firing energy that disrupted electronics and seared through armor. Merrick commanded from the front, rallying his team with steady words. At the heart of the hive, Rayne faced a psychic storm. Visions flooded her, memories of lost worlds, echoes of pain and flashes of hope. She saw the origin of the corruption, the twisted logic behind the swarm's endless hunger. And she found a weakness, a fractured core of resistance buried deep in the hive mind. With a final surge of will, Rayne unleashed a psychic pulse, shattering the corrupted beacon. The hive screamed in agony as its hold fractured, bioforms collapsing, and the hybrid tech sputtering into silence. The battle was won, but the cost was clear. The Ardent Dawn limped away from Lysara, battered but alive. The crew mourned their fallen and honored their sacrifice. But Merrick knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy's shadow was deep, and the Pale Swarm's hunger was endless. As stars streaked past the viewport, Merrick whispered a vow. "We will not falter. We will not fade." And with that, the Ardent Dawn sailed on, carrying the fragile flame of humanity's hope into the darkness. The Ardent Dawn drifted through the cold vastness of space, its hull scarred from the recent battle, but its spirit unbroken. The crew moved with a quiet urgency, each tending to their duties while wrestling with the invisible weight of survival. Captain Jace Merrick paced the command center, fingers steepled beneath his chin, eyes shadowed with the unspoken burden of leadership. The Lysara cluster was behind them, but the questions it raised burned brighter than any star. "How much do we really understand about the Pale Swarm?" Merrick asked aloud, though only Sictel and Rayne remained in the room with him. Sictel's crystalline form shimmered thoughtfully. "They are older than any record we possess. Possibly remnants or byproducts of the first civilization's fall. Their consumption is not mere hunger, but a cosmic force." Rayne's gaze was distant, tangled in memories and thoughts beyond the immediate. They are the echo of entropy itself, unrelenting, inevitable, but within them there is a fracture, a memory of what once was. Memory? Merrick's voice was sharp with curiosity. Rayne nodded slowly. "When I touched the hive mind, I glimpsed fragments, shards of a past existence. Before they became the swarm, they were guardians, tasked with preserving balance. Something corrupted them, something violent." Sictel tilted its head, its voice like ice scraping stone. Then understanding their origin could be key to stopping them. Merrick's jaw clenched. "We need answers, and fast." The Ardent Dawn set a new course, toward the shadowed remnants of a lost star system, whispered in ancient archives as the first sanctuary. It was said to be the birthplace of the earliest civilizations, and possibly the cradle of the Pale Swarm's fall. Days later, the crew gathered on the observation deck, watching the star system come into view, an eerie constellation of shattered worlds and dying suns. Rayne broke the silence. The first sanctuary was not just a place. It was a beacon of knowledge and power. If we find its heart, we may find the key to unraveling the swarm's curse. Merrick studied the jagged planets, their scars glowing faintly with residual energy. Then we risk everything to reach it. As they approached the outermost planet, sensors picked up unusual energy readings, echoes of old technology, far beyond anything currently known. The crew prepared for descent. Merrick's voice was steady as he briefed them. "We're not just exploring ruins. We're entering a vault of the past. Expect anything." The surface was a landscape of twisted metal and crystal spires, half buried in alien sands. Structures rose like ancient titans, worn by millennia but still humming with latent power. Sictel led the exploration, analyzing inscriptions and holographic records flickering weakly in the gloom. "These symbols predate any known language," Sictel explained. "They speak of guardians who wielded entropy like a tool, not a weapon." Rayne traced her fingers over a glyph that pulsed faintly. They built this sanctuary to contain a force they could no longer control. Deeper into the sanctuary, the crew found a chamber sealed by energy barriers that flickered with unstable power. Merrick ordered the team forward cautiously. Inside, a massive crystalline structure dominated the room, a pulsating core of light and shadow, suspended in a cage of ancient machinery. Rayne's voice was barely a whisper. "This is it, the heart of the first sanctuary, and possibly the source of the swarm's fall." Suddenly the chamber trembled. An echoing voice filled the air, ancient, fragmented, but unmistakably alive. "You who seek the light, beware the darkness you awaken." The core pulsed violently, sending waves of energy that rippled through the crew's minds. Rayne staggered but held her focus, reaching out psychically. A vision exploded behind her eyes. A history of betrayal, a war of gods and mortals, and the birth of the Pale Swarm as a desperate measure to stave off annihilation. They were guardians, Rayne said with awe, created to hold back entropy, but corrupted by fear and hubris. Merrick's voice was firm. "Then maybe we can restore what was lost, reverse the corruption." The crew worked quickly to interface with the sanctuary's systems. Sictel's crystalline fingers danced over controls, stabilizing the energy fields. Tarn guarded the entrance, eyes sharp for any sign of the swarm or other threats. Rayne synchronized her neural link with the core, becoming a conduit of ancient power and modern resolve. The core responded, opening pathways of light that revealed star maps, coded histories, and technologies that could shift the balance of war. Merrick absorbed the data, feeling hope rekindle amidst the shadows. But with it came a warning. The Pale Swarm's corruption was a virus that infected not just machines but minds. Once free will was lost, the cycle could repeat. "Then we're running against time," Merrick said. "We stop the spread or doom the galaxy to endless decay." As the Ardent Dawn prepared to depart, Rayne's expression darkened. "The Hive is adapting," she said. "They've learned from us, and now they may try to turn their own against us." Merrick met her gaze. "Then we fight harder." The galaxy was vast and the darkness deep, but in the light of lost civilizations and human courage, a new hope was born. A hope that even in the face of oblivion, life would find a way to endure. The Ardent Dawn cut through the black expanse like a blade, streaking away from the first sanctuary with its precious cargo of forgotten knowledge. The weight of discovery pressed heavily on the crew. They had glimpsed the origins of the Pale Swarm and the terrible price paid to keep them contained. Now, the true battle lay ahead. Captain Jace Merrick stood at the helm, eyes scanning distant stars while his mind churned with strategy. The galaxy had shifted beneath their feet. What once seemed a distant, faceless threat was now a living, breathing nightmare, born of ancient hubris and desperation. Back in the crew quarters, tension simmered. Tarn paced restlessly, his reptilian features tight with unease. "The swarm adapting. That means they're learning from us. Every engagement, every move we make, they grow stronger." Sictel's crystalline eyes flickered with cold logic. "Our defensive measures must evolve. We cannot afford repeated mistakes." Rayne sat quietly, her half-human mind grappling with the psychic burden of the Hive's memories. It's more than tactics. The swarm is a collective consciousness, but one that now holds contradictions, memories of guardianship and destruction. That conflict is tearing at their cohesion. Tarn scoffed. "Sounds like we're just waiting for them to implode." Rayne shook her head. "If they do, the resulting chaos could consume everything. We need to find a way to heal that fracture, or at least use it to our advantage." Merrick called the crew together in the command center. "We've identified a pattern in the swarm's behavior," he announced. "They're not just attacking randomly, they're hunting for the core systems of the coalition. Relay stations, communication hubs, places where control can be seized." "We hit them hard there, we cripple their advance," Sictel said. "But we don't have enough forces for full defense," Merrick replied. "We need to strike at their heart, disrupt the Hive's link and buy time." Rayne's voice was calm but urgent. "I can attempt a deep dive into the Hive's consciousness, psychically link to their network and introduce a virus of sorts, something that could exploit their inner contradictions." The room fell silent. Merrick met her gaze. "That's risky. You could get lost in their minds or become a conduit for their corruption." Rayne nodded. "I know, but if we don't act now, the swarm will consume everything." Preparations began immediately. The Ardent Dawn was rerouted toward a cluster of systems near the swarm's advancing front, where a massive hive node pulsed with raw power. It was the neural nexus, the brain of the Pale Swarm. Rayne entered a specialized neural interface, her consciousness linked to the ship's systems as the crew prepared for the mental battle ahead. Inside the neural network, Rayne's mind swirled in a storm of alien thoughts and memories, fractured, violent, but tinged with a strange longing for redemption. Voices whispered, shifting from menace to pleading. "You do not belong here," one echoed. "But I carry their past," Rayne replied. "Their fear, their hope, their pain." In the physical world, the crew monitored her vitals as she navigated the hive's twisted corridors of thought. Sigtel's voice crackled over comms. "Rayne, be careful. The swarm is trying to overwhelm your mind." Tarn gripped his weapon tighter, eyes scanning the dark for any approaching threat. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. An attack. Swarm drones breached the outer defenses, swarming the Ardent Dawn like locusts. Merrick barked orders, "Defensive positions, hold the line." The battle was brutal and close, the ship's hull creaking under the relentless assault. Inside the neural interface, Rayne found the source of the hive's corruption, a core of raw, chaotic energy, bleeding entropy. She plunged deeper, releasing the psychic virus, watching as it spread like wildfire through the swarm's mind. Back on the Ardent Dawn, the tide turned. The drones faltered, their coordinated attacks breaking apart as the virus took hold. Merrick led a counterattack, pushing the invaders back into the void. As calm returned, Rayne's consciousness began to fade from the neural interface. Her voice was weak but triumphant. "It's done. The fracture. It's widening." The crew exhaled, relief and exhaustion mingling in the tense air. But Merrick's face remained grave. "This victory is just a pause," he said. "The swarm will adapt again. We have to be ready." Days passed and the Ardent Dawn limped toward a nearby coalition outpost for repairs and reinforcements. Yet beneath the surface, fractures were growing, not just within the swarm but among the crew themselves. Tarn's frustration boiled over during a heated argument with Sigtel. "You think your logic will save us? Sometimes the only answer is brute force." Sigtel's response was icy. "Brute force without strategy is suicide." Rayne tried to mediate, but the strain was palpable. Merrick watched quietly, knowing the battles ahead would not just be against the swarm, but within themselves. In the silence of his quarters, Merrick touched the Martian insignia once worn by Commander Voss, a reminder of those who had fallen and the legacy they carried. He whispered to the stars, "We stand because they stood before us. We fight because we must." The galaxy was still a dark, dangerous place. But amidst the fractures, within enemies and allies alike, there burned a fragile hope, and as long as that flame remained, humanity would not falter.